Hey, what's up guys? Jordan Anderson here from Valley Films, and on this episode I want to talk to you guys today about lenses. I've gotten this question a lot lately, especially about beginners and what's the right lens to get at first, and I just want to address all of that just so that it's, just kind of answer the question for everybody. So most of the question has been, what lens should I get? Or, I just bought a camera, what first lens should I get? When you're first starting out, a kit lens is perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with an 18-55 f3.5 to 5.6, lens for your Canon T3i. When you're at the beginning stages, it's not really about what lens you have or how good your lens is. When you are at the very beginning stages of learning filmmaking, you need to focus more on composition, focus more on, what is considered a good shot, what is good framing. An 18-55 is going to get you there. It's going to give you a variety of ranges to play with, and sort of getting your eye, your eye adjusted to the camera's eye. The first time you get your legitimate camera, don't worry about the lens. That's just one step that's just going to, distract you from actually learning the process of filmmaking. So for those who are maybe 6 months in now, a couple months in, they feel like they've outgrown their 18-55 lens, which I definitely ran into. When I first got my camera, I ran into that where I feel, you get to the point where you feel like you've kind of you've learned this range, you've mastered it, and now you're ready for a better look, something more challenging, maybe a different perspective. The next step I would probably go towards is getting something like a 50mm prime. You can get them real cheap. If you have a Canon DSLR, you can get a 50mm prime for probably like $50. The cool part about the 50mm, it's a fixed lens, so there's no zooming in or out. And a 50mm is pretty close to what our eye sees. But the cool part about the primes and the 50mm is that it has a lower f-stop. So in other words, it has a wider aperture. That old kit lens has 3.5 f-stop. So with this 50mm prime, you're going to be able to get to the 1.8, maybe 1.4 range, which is really going to open it up, let a lot of light in, and also create that really shallow depth of field. You're starting to get that cinematic look that you're going for. What I really like about primes is how it forces you to think in that mode. So if you have a 50mm prime, you're forced to think in that 50mm perspective. You have to position the camera in the right way. If you want a close-up, how far away from the subject do you need to be? If you want to get a wide shot with a 50mm, how far away do you need to be? And it kind of builds that understanding. You're starting to now think like a 50mm. You're starting to think, all right, if I put a 50mm on this camera, how close is this going to be to the subject? If you gave me a choice between primes and zooms, I would definitely go with primes, because I have this philosophy that zoom lens makes for lazy filmmakers. I'm not saying that filmmakers who use zoom lenses are lazy, but the ability to, punch in, punch out, it just makes for a lazy filmmaker who just ends up just standing in one place, zoom in, zoom out, pan over, zoom in, zoom out. Whereas with the prime, you're set to one length and you have to move to the subject, you have to move to where you want to go. And I've said, those moments where you have to move often lead to these creative pathways that you never knew existed had you just stood there and zoomed into 70mm and zoomed out. So primes sort of, the limitation of creativity forces you to think sort of outside that limitation. How do we work around this limitation that is 50mm? So since everyone's camera system is different, I can't recommend a certain lens, get this lens versus that lens. If you are working in a cinema setting, if you're in an indie film, cheap lenses that are primes are the Rokinons, and the step up from that is the Xeen lenses, which are in the same Rokinon family. Those are really nice. Of course, you have the Canon Cine lenses, but unless you have thousands of dollars to even rent those, you're not going to get your hands on those. There's also this argument, and I think it's made mostly by photographers, but it sort of spills into the filmmaking world, and that's about the quality of the lens. I'll talk mostly Canon lenses because that's what I've had the most experience with. Let's talk about, say, the Cannonball lens. 85mm Canon prime lens versus the 85mm Canon prime L series lens. Those two lenses are very different and the price is completely different. The Canon L series is very expensive, and a photographer will say, I'll go with the L series hands down because it's the sharpest, it's the clearest. But you have to think about where they're coming from. They're talking about still images where you have to look at it and you can zoom in and you see the crystal clear details of something. With video, it's motion, it's 24 frames per second, there's motion blur involved. Sharpness is not the #1 goal of filmmakers. So the 85mm prime, the non-L series lens, may oftentimes be the better choice on a price standpoint and just functionality. It's nice to say you have the Canon L series lenses, but if you put them side by side on a video test, there's not much difference. Now of course, on a photography difference, there is the L series is sharper, yes. But with video, there's not that level of scrutiny about the sharpness or the detail of the lens. If there's this hype up to get the higher series lens, get the L series, get the fancier lens, you may want to figure out where that opinion's coming from, if it's coming from a photographer or a filmmaker. So those are some things to keep in mind about lenses. Again, I'm not going to give you a recommendation about what lens to get because everyone's camera system is different and every millimeter focal length zoom is all different. Like this is a 35mm on a APS-C sensor on the 70D. I'm about 5 feet from the camera. It's at f2.5. We have this kind of blurred background. Is that a look you're going for? Is it not? Are you looking for a tighter lens, wider lens? That's up to you. But just keep those things in mind versus primes and zooms. So there's probably some things I didn't clarify totally. I mean, if you have any questions about lenses or if I wasn't, if I left something out, leave it in the comments. I'll be happy to answer it. And my name is Jordan Anderson from Valley Films, and we'll see you next time in the Valley Films video blog. Video blog? The video blog.